Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee, and this week I want to ask, what's your favourite war movie, and did it inspire you to pick a period? Now, the wife and I have been watching a few old movies lately, including some proper golden oldies in black and white. Without the benefit of CGI, these films had to rely on old-fashioned techniques called story to engage the audience, and we found a few old gems like this. Now, I've also been watching a few war films that I haven't seen for a long time, and it got me to thinking about these films, those films that inspired me as a child and later as a wargamer. Maybe they just had a great script or an iconic actor in them that inspired you, or maybe they were visually impressive or beautifully filmed and it inspired your later wargaming. So today I thought I would discuss 3 particular war movies that I've enjoyed, explain why they've inspired me, and then as usual ask what inspired you. So I'm going to start off with A Bridge Too Far. Now, I saw the film when I was a young lad, and many years later I read the book by Cornelius Ryan. It's got its faults, but it was a very much an emotional connection to that thing, and a great story to read. This probably more than any other film excited my interest in Second World War, even though at the end I've ended up focusing more on Operation Overlord rather than Market Garden in my gaming. But nonetheless, it was just the broad sweep of the story, the multiple characters, the ensemble cast, all these great actors and some great roles being played out. And then in later years, I've actually met veterans who were there. I knew, sadly they're both passed on, but I knew 2 battlefield medics who were with the parachute regiment in Arnhem itself. That amazing connection to that film and that story and the book. For me, a great film that definitely inspired me to be interested in the Second World War in general. And in a film that's probably on every wargamer's list, Zulu. But I'd also add Zulu Dawn in there, 2 different films. Probably every wargamer has Waterloo or Zulu on their list of favourite movies, and so I'm not unusual in that respect. There's massive historical accuracies. Both films, though, are hugely enjoyable, visually inspiring, great soundtracks, which I always think is important. It was almost inevitable that at some point I would end up doing the Anglo-Zulu War. And as I say, that there are historical inaccuracies. You can't watch a Hollywood movie without, not especially now that you know a bit more about the history, you can't watch a Hollywood movie without going, that's wrong, or they've truncated the timeline there, or these events didn't happen in that way. But nonetheless, it's about inspiration. And and I remember seeing Zulu as a young child, and just that soundtrack and the amazing uniforms and the bravery of the Zulus, just the whole thing inspired me. And so, like I say, many years later I got to paint the period in 6mm, and I've even played the Battle of Rorke's Drift in 6mm. There's a video, if you have a look on my battle reports on this channel, you'll find a video of my Rorke's Drift game. Very much the culmination of years of wanting to do it. So very much these films, I still watch them and enjoy them today, often put the soundtracks on while I'm painting. Brilliant films, worth seeking out if you haven't seen them before or if you haven't seen them in a long time. And then 2 more films, again I'm going to list 2 here, I'm cheating with my own set of rules. Beau Geste and Beau Hunks, 2 brilliantly different films set in French colonial Algeria and Morocco. The various films that have been made of Beau Geste, the book, over the years, it's a book that probably would be very hard to replicate in film these days, but they're great stories, a nice compact story. Again, you can't help but be inspired by this lonely garrison being attacked from the outside, and the subplot, the story that's driving it. So really enjoyable. And then of course I've also enjoyed things like the Abbott and Costello, and particularly the Laurel and Hardy comedy versions of that theme, that set in the desert. And then of course films like March or Die that are also set in that sort of period. Again, when I decided I was going to do French Foreign Legion in 15mm, I was partly inspired because I come across the miniatures range and I thought, oh, that looked really good. But all the time I was thinking about the connections to the films, and indeed when I ended up putting the game on as a demo at a show, the theme of the show for our game was Hollywood versus reality. So comparing these amazing movies that inspired the want to paint those figures with the reality of the history of the period. So again, well worth seeking out. You can usually, some of the Bourges movies are available for free if you can look for them, but they're all relatively cheap, and sometimes you can get them streaming services and stuff. Well worth looking at, very good, and again, pre-CGI for the majority, for all of these films that I've mentioned. So you've got real physical effects, people running around getting a genuine sweat on because they're running around in what it looks like a fairly hot environment, probably some sound stage rather than a location, but nonetheless very interesting, very inspiring, and that was partly what I was thinking about when I was painting up my Foreign Legion project. Now, of course, there are so many more films besides. They're not the only films that have inspired me, not by a long shot. I would include films like The Longest Day, Paths of Glory, Dam Busters, Waterloo, of course, The Duelists, brilliant movie that I only really watched a few years ago, Cross of Iron, Last of the Mohicans, for the music alone, if nothing else. Dunkirk, now I would say the original, not Nolan's rubbish remake, I hated that film, the original black and white version of Dunkirk, brilliant. The list goes on and on and on and on. There's so many that I would say are brilliant and have been inspired me that I couldn't list them all here. No doubt some of you will agree with some of the ones on my list, sometimes you might disagree. So what war films have inspired your own gaming? And what was it about the film that most inspired you? Was it the actors, great script, the setting, or just the visuals? Everyone will have their favourites, and asking you to name just one seems a little cruel. So what are your top three? Why did you pick them? And have you gamed them yet? Have you actually taken that inspiration and put it on the games table? Maybe your choices will remind me of a great movie I haven't watched for a long while, or lead me to one that I haven't seen at all. So please join the conversation in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and share. And if you want to keep up to date with weekly content from this channel, please tap the bell notification icon. So until next week, stay safe, keep gaming, and of course, keep rolling high.